Detective Comics 1098, Tom Taylor writing with Lee Garbett on the art. So, cliffhanger from last issue was Batman looking for Bullock, who'd been taken by Elixir, but he instead found the Penguin in the truck that he was tracking. And that's where we pick up this issue. So we get kind of an interesting team up here where Penguin ends up tagging along with Batman as Batman's going to try and save Bullock, because if he leaves Penguin on his own behind in Wolf Country, Penguin might die and he might actually feel bad about that. So he has him tag along. And it is played for kind of laughs where Batman's about to leave him and Penguin's like, oh, what if I get attacked by a bear? And there's like 3 identical panels of Batman, and you see Penguin in the rear view mirror, and he's just like, what was it?
Picolistan.
Picolistan. That's a made up place, right?
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's made up. Picolistan doesn't have bears, and then there's just like the panel again with no bubbles, and then the panel for a third time with a new speech bubble, just him saying it does have wolves, and then next page, Penguin sitting in the passenger side of the truck that he's hijacked. So I don't know. There's a good comedy beat there that I enjoyed.
Well, and then it's followed up with another comedy beat where Bruce has his finger up to his ear because Oracle's calling him. And then Penguin's like, a lot of people in my circle think you just talk to yourself and cover it by putting your hand up to your ear. I thought that was funny too.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of bits like that, because later on when Batman's using his tech to take out all the surveillance, like all the security cameras, Penguin's like sitting next to him going, oh, I have to remember you have this technology. Yep. And Batman's like, I'll adapt. So no, it made for an entertaining duo, if you will. Yeah,
this is the most I've liked Penguin since the Penguin series that Tom King did. Like you can. I don't think it's that difficult to make a likable Penguin.
To be fair, I don't think there's been much Penguin in between these two things, Matt. To be fair, it's not like there's been tons of Penguins that you've been like, oh, this is a shit Penguin, or this is a boring Penguin.
No, but it's just the fun of the character. He's not just the scary crime boss, right? They're approaching him with a bit of wry sense of humor, and I do like that. It bounces off of Bruce really well.
Yeah, notably, Oracle does say, hey, I looked into some of these names that Bullock managed to get in his file and found photographs of them meeting Ra's al Ghul like 80 years ago or whatever it is.
Yep.
Or 100 years ago. It's 1924. Jeez, I'm forgetting it's 2025. Time is a fickle thing.
Here's the thing. I wasn't going to correct you. I just agreed. And then it hit me too. I was like, oh no, that is, oh God.
Yeah, it's 100 years.
Time.
So it's like, okay, that makes some sense. If Elixir are finding ways to stay immortal, then it makes sense that they've at least shared a bed once or twice with a certain demon's head. But so that's teasing things for the future. We see Bullock be basically tortured by these Elixir members, and Bullock, of course, is a defiant shit because, well, he's Bullock, right? He's not going to give anything up too easy. So there's a fun beat here actually, where the main guy Ambrose is like, hey, he's this torturer dude here is very good, and the torturer's like, yeah, I'm going to enjoy watching you suffer because you're so stubborn. And then they hear like some gunshots from the outside, presumably because Batman's intervening in some way, and Bullock just says, oh, like, because one of them screams, who's there? And Bullock's like, oh, I'm going to enjoy watching you suffer. So I really like that little payoff. Like this was a really fun, well-paced issue, and I think one of the things that I liked about it is that the plot just very naturally kept moving to the next thing. Everything just naturally flowed to the next part, which is going to be very different to another book that I talk about this week, where I felt the opposite. Just like, okay, so you got Batman and Penguin, and there's a sort of odd couple team up. We cut to Bullock, which is what their goal is. And then we sort of have like the people in the room react to the fact that Batman might be outside, and then we go to what's happening with Batman, where he's sent the truck in to distract them, but he's going in the back with Penguin. Like everything just sort of neatly flows on to the next thing, bit to bit. So, all very good. So
the way that Garbett plays with the shadows with Batman. Right, so everything with the elixir and the frontal assault, everything's bright and lit up. And then we get around with Penguin and Bruce, and just the way that the shadows fall, and they're almost like they're not that they're their own character, but yeah, but they make the scene feel more moody. It gives it a different vibe than that actiony kind of stuff that we were seeing.
Yeah, no, it's just like I think the layouts aren't that kind of like wacky, but there is like one moment where Batman grabs Penguin, and he's just kind of doing it from behind the action underneath him, where Batman's grappling away. It's like popping out of his back almost. So there's a sense of flow to it and whatnot. And then they get in, it's all very shadowy. There's not a lot of dialogue. It's all very quiet. Big 2-page sort of layout for a fight scene as he gets to Bullock. And of course, Bullock's headbutted the Torturer at this point, so it's like, oh, he barely needed any help. But yeah, because the Torturer though hit the silent alarm, Elixir are preparing outside. Like Reese or Ambrose has got like all of his like soldiers ready. They're telling them to come out and surrender. And it's like, okay, well, we have to deal with this. And Penguin picks up a gun, and Batman's like, nope, not a chance. Here, you have this, and hands him an umbrella, which he makes a dig about that being a stereotype. And Bullock grabs his gun. So they try and go outside, and Bullock uses the Torturer like as a sort of as a hostage, a shield, if you will.
Human shield. Yeah.
And says, "Hey, everyone, put your guns down, or like your guy's going to get it, or whatever." And seemingly, what Bullock's not predicted here, and I don't think Batman's predicted it either. Although I think Batman realizes in the moment of hesitation after he makes this yell, that he realizes that Elixir do not care, and they will shoot through their guy to get to Bullock. So the big cliffhanger to the issue is that Bullock has been shot because he's standing behind this other guy who they've quite happily just machined bullets into. So, good cliffhanger. Obviously, I think Bullock's very likable here. I think this is such an odd trio of characters to be together. Batman, Penguin, and Bullock. But honestly, so far, it's proven pretty entertaining. I can't really complain. Yeah.
I like that Bullock has the guy, he's like, hey, our friend here's 130. If you want him to see 131... let's do it. And then they just, there's a bit of hesitation by the guy that wears the red glasses. I forget his name.
Ambrose, but, I think. I mean, I could be misremembering that, but I think.
I thought Ambrose was the Torturer.
Was it?
Hold on. I might have had him flipped. It doesn't matter, but yes, you're right. It's Dr. Burton is the Torturer. But anyways, just the hesitation there with Bruce in the middle, and then the bullets. So I'm wondering if this is how we're going to see how Elixir responds. Like, are they these immortal guys? Do they have to do a process? Are they going to do it for Bullock, right? As like a leverage type thing. But yeah, it's a hell of a cliffhanger.
Yeah, no. It flowed very well. I liked how focused it was. It never like deviated to a B plot. Everything fed into what was going on. Even there's a little bit of setup for like teasing the backstory of Elixir by having like the Oracle information, but even that's still in the context. We're trying to find Bullock. Like, can you track where the other thing went and blah blah blah. Everything just flows on to the other. There's like no fat on the issue to me. It felt perfectly paced. I know like some older comic book fans like don't like the pacing of modern comics. They like what it was like in the 70s and 80s, where there was a lot more like stories squeezed into each issue. But for me, this is the type of pacing that I really like. There's definitely issues that go too decompressed. I think this is exactly the pacing that I like out of a comic book.
Fits what the story that they're trying to tell, right? Is Bruce is trying to figure out what's going on with Elixir. Now he's in this foreign country, and his main goal is to get to Bullock. So it's constantly moving forward because that's what Bruce is doing. Yeah. And again, it fits.
There's momentum. That's a good way of putting it. There's a lot of momentum in it, yeah.
So, and with, because if this was a slower detective story, like we have to, trace down where Bullock and stuff went, I don't think it would land as much. But the fact that it's very action-oriented, and like you kept saying, it flows from one scene to the other. Very, very good on both the writer and the artist part.
Yeah, and obviously that panel where the gunshots are fired on the last page is red, which very much stands out in contrast because every other panel in that page is very blue and black and very muted. And notably, the only other hint of red is in the sunglasses of Ambrose, which actually, in a weird way, foreshadows the gunfire. Just in like a color thematic sense. The only red before the gunshots is in his glasses, which is basically just the art telling you he's willing to take the shots. So, no, really cool stuff. What are you giving Detective Comics?
I'm gonna give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I find it hard to. I certainly don't want to go any lower than that. Yeah, I'm almost like willing to give it a 9. I think I'll stick to the 8.5. Just because it's not doing anything like spectacular on an emotional level.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, it's a great issue. Taylor's, really finding his foot in his detective run. Now that we're out of all that Joe Chill stuff that was murkying up the first arc, we're just in happy land now.